What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to talk through my 9 must-draft sleepers and taxi squad stashes for your 2024 rookie drafts. I imagine a lot of you guys, these things are wrapping up, right? We're in the 3rd round, 4th round, even some of you guys in the 5th round, and it's a lot of mid on the board, right? You don't even, you're talking through, the tight end 6 and, the quarterback 5, and is it time to take Spencer Rattler yet? Is it time to take a flyer on Johnny Wilson at this point yet? So we're going to talk through some guys that I'm targeting in round 3, round 4, and then some guys you can even pick up and just claim off of waivers after the draft and store on your taxi squad to give you guys some targets and some direction in those late rounds. So with all that being said, if you enjoy, make sure down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
Now, as always, you can find my top 50, right? We're just going to talk through our targets today, but I have my top 50 rookie superflex tight end premium rankings already on the Patreon. You can find those patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can find them in the description. In the comment section down below, you get my superflex top 50 tight end premium rookie rankings. You get my RS grades dating back to 2007. You get my Dynasty rankings top 230 for startups happening right now. If you have any kind of drafts going on, you can find that on the Patreon. Now, when we talk through my specific targets here, we are talking outside of the first 2 rounds. That's the parameters for this video. Again, we'll have a couple of targets in the 3rd round of rookie drafts, a couple of targets in the 4th round of rookie drafts, and some guys that are going completely undrafted. And first up here, you can see him. He is going at the 306, according to Dynasty Data Lab ADP. I'll make sure I link this down below. He has rookie draft ADP on there, and it's perfect to look through as you're making these picks. But I love Javon Baker in the 3rd round. Now, a lot of you guys saw, well, he wasn't in my top 15. Ron, what are we going to do about Javon Baker? Well, he's my wide receiver 16, and selfishly, I saved him for this video so I could talk about him here. He's one of these guys where you guys know I'm a draft capital snob. I like guys with day 1 and 2 draft capital, but Javon Baker's a guy that I am making an exception for. I actually have him ranked over a couple of guys that were drafted on day 2, like your Jalen McMillans of the world, because he has such a fun profile. He is somebody profiled as a prototypical X wide receiver. We talked with Matt Harmon over the weekend, and he talked us through Javon Baker. He is this classic X wide receiver, line up on the outside, on the line of scrimmage, and at college, he beat press coverage at an 88th percentile clip, which is really, really strong. And this is a team that doesn't have a true X wide receiver, right? Jalen Polk, we talked with Matt Harmon, is more of your flanker, zone coverage beater type of guy. They have Demario Douglas, who's going to be a slot, and then you're talking Kendrick Bourne, who's coming off an ACL injury. So it's not a huge barrier to entry for Javon Baker to find snaps early. And I believe in the talent. This is a guy that I believe fell to day 3. He actually was a highly touted recruit. He was a 4-star recruit who got picked up by Alabama. But his freshman year was a Devontae Smith Heisman year. Good luck producing in that wide receiver room. And then his sophomore year, Jameson Williams and John Mechie both went for 1,000+ yards that year. So really tough to produce in that room. He transfers to UCF and is just an absolute monster. He had over 2 yards per route run in his first year at UCF, and then he had a 3.21 yards per route run last year, which is really good. He is this super clean X wide receiver. He looks a lot like a Michael Gallup, where, you're 6 foot, 6'1", 202 pounds, 4.5 speed, 37-inch vertical is nice as well. He's not a mega athlete, but he's a big physical receiver with prerequisite speed, right? 4.5 speed is not crazy, but it's good enough. It'll pass, right? Now, when we talk about how he stacks up to the rest of this class in my database, he's pretty damn good. His 2.53 yards per route run is 8th in this class. His 1.07 first downs per route run is 10th. His year 4 yards per team pass attempt was 3.11, which is 3rd in this class, ahead of Odunze. He had a 14.7 career ADOT, 19.2% slot percentage. So he's this guy who gets used out wide, downfield, and he has the 4th best contested catch percentage in this class at 56%. And then also you can see the contested target percentage, where we want guys who don't have all of their targets in contested situations because we want them creating separation. So he's very good at contested catches, but he's not living off of them as his only way of winning. So he's very fun. He's not a jump ball merchant. He's somebody that can play a real X wide receiver position in the NFL. He's just 22 years old. I do love, the confidence thing if he can make people in wheelchairs stand up. He is very fun. He's a guy, as soon as it turns to the 3rd round, I'm targeting Javon Baker. Now, after that, we have a guy that I've actually drafted in the 4th round before, but I'll call him a 3rd round rookie target here, and that's Luke McCaffrey. All right, the Luke McCaffrey disrespect has probably gone too far. He's Christian McCaffrey's brother. You have to remember as well, he was a quarterback convert. So he actually played quarterback early on in his college career and then converted to wide receiver. So a lot of his numbers are raw. He's going to be like a raw player. But the fact that he converted to receiver and still got day 2 draft capital, this is a guy who got drafted late in round 3, which is still round 3 draft capital here. When we look at wide receiver draft capital hit rates, there's a huge tier break from round 3 to round 4, right? We're talking points per game in your first 3 years goes from 5.7 to 3.8. Top 12 point per game percentage goes from 15.9% to 3.1%. That's awful. Then 27.5% of round 3 receivers hit top 24 point per game seasons, only 7.7% in round 4. Just based on these hit rates alone, you have to sort of give Luke McCaffrey some respect for going round 3. Now, can he be a Jalen Tolbert? Can he be one of these round 3 receivers that just do nothing in the league? I think David Bell would be one of them. Maybe even Cedric Tillman last year, sure. But there's still hope. The team invested a lot in him, right? Round 3 draft capital isn't nothing. And even though that he is this raw player where he played quarterback early on, he still has really strong numbers on a per route basis. When we look at the day, or this is just your day 1 and 2 wide receivers here. So this is just rounds 1 through 3. 2.18 yards per run. Like clearing 2 yards per run is really solid. Clearing 0.1 first downs per run, really solid. He had a 57.9% of his routes come from the slot. So he projects as a route, he projects as a slot receiver. And then he also had a 61.5% contested catch percentage, which I believe was the best in this class, or if not the best, like a top 2 or 3 number, like better than Marvin Harrison Jr., better than Rome Odunze. He was a monster. Like to me, that just signals to me that he's a gamer, right? He's going to win in contested catch situations. Yes, he's at Rice, so you can ding him a little bit for that, but he's a gamer, right? Yards per run is there. He's getting first down. He's moving the chains, and he reminds me a lot of like Julian Edelman with draft capital is what I would call him, where both of these guys, we're talking like a sub 200 pounds, Luke McCaffrey with 4.4 speed, but the agility drill is what really sticks out. And you can see here in the player profiler picture too, what's that, 96 percentile agility score. So that's what we really want from these slot receivers, right? Where you can see his shuttle time, 9.68. That means it was 96 percentile. His 3-cone was 95th percentile. Julian Edelman beat him in both, but still like elite numbers in the agility drills, which again is what we want for our, lack of a better term, our white slot receivers. We want guys that are very agile in that part of the field. And he goes to a Washington team that needs slot receivers, right? Logan Thomas is gone. This is their 2023 wide receiver room sorted by slot snaps. Logan Thomas is gone. Curtis Samuel is gone. Jahan Dotson, I doubt that he would move inside full-time. Just 42% of his routes were from the slot last year. And then they also have Jamison Crowder, who's just super old at this point. So Luke McCaffrey could be a guy on day 1 starting in the slot. So I think that that's really interesting. Again, really good agility scores, day 2 draft capital. He's a guy that I've drafted in the 4th round. Like I think he's somebody I would take in the 3rd round of rookie drafts. Like he's somebody like right after Javon Baker. I'm fine taking Luke McCaffrey in that like mid to late 3rd of rookie drafts. Again, I know it's not a sexy pick, right? It's Luke McCaffrey. He probably got drafted a little bit too high. He's really only his like biggest claim to fame is being Christian McCaffrey's brother, but I don't mind betting on him. Again, he got the draft capital. He's in a spot where he should get snaps early. So I don't mind that at all. Now, our next player here is somebody with a 4th round ADP, right? First 2 were 3rd round rookie picks. This guy's a 4th rounder. We're going to talk about Theo Johnson, tight end out of Penn State. He goes to the Giants. He gets drafted in real life in the 4th round, and he's just an absolute physical specimen. His RAS comparable comes out as Jimmy Graham. Both 6'6", 260 pounds, 4.5 speed, 39.5-inch vertical. I mean, it's just nuts. I will say Jimmy Graham's 3-cone is crazy, but then also Theo Johnson's shuttle score was crazy. He is a freak. He literally grades out. I have archetypes in my tight end database with the RS grades. Again, I really got to start explaining this every time I bring it up for the first time in a video, but I have RS grades. It's my prospect model. You can be, for tight ends, you can be gold, silver, or bronze. With each of those tiers is a corresponding hit rate bucket for 17 plus point per game finishes, 14 plus point per game finishes, 12 plus point per game finishes for tight ends. And Theo Johnson, we look at just tight ends drafted on day 3. who qualify as freaks. These are guys who hit a certain threshold of size, speed score, agility score, RAS, height, weight, like monsters. And you can see here, when we just look at day 3 freak tight ends, it's a pretty good list. Now, he grades out as silver, which is really rare. We only have 2 golds and 2 silvers all time for day 3 tight ends. It's George Kittle, Darren Waller, Jordan Cameron. If you guys don't remember, Jordan Cameron was a stud. Jordan Cameron had like 1 year in fantasy where he had like a 14-plus point per game season with the Miami Dolphins, and he was sick. But then the rest of these bronzes are pretty brutal. I mean, Logan Thomas isn't bad, but then you're talking like Albert O, you're talking Zach Kuntz, you're talking, a bunch of nobodies. So could he very much be the next Albert O? For sure. But when we're talking like 4th round of rookie drafts and we're just taking flyers, we want guys who are freak athletes, and that is what Theo Johnson is. And he goes to a room in New York, doesn't have a ton of talent, right? It's Malik Neighbors and it's kind of nobody. Earlier on in the offseason, I've been saying to buy Darren Waller. I've cooled off on that a little bit. It's weird to even like sort of mention this, but you had like his wife, Kelsey Plum, came out and is like divorcing him, which I think probably signals that he might be retiring. But I don't mind playing both sides of this, where like you can buy Darren Waller for free, and maybe he comes back and plays tight end. If not, then you can also draft Theo Johnson for free. Like, I think it's just worth taking free stabs on the Giants tight end room, because then if you could take a stab at Theo Johnson, if Darren Waller retires, it's like him versus Daniel Bellinger, and then it's Malik Neighbors, and then after that, you're looking at like Darius Slayton, who I don't think has reported to the involuntary camp or whatever. Like, he seems to want like a real contract here, so there's targets up for grab, and Dable always schemes up a good offense, so I like the idea of targeting Theo Johnson in a weak wide receiver and tight end room. But then our 4th must-draft rookie sleeper here is another rookie tight end getting drafted. He's going like late 4th. Sometimes undrafted. Sometimes going in like the early 5th of rookie drafts if you have 5 rounds. And that's going to be Erick All. This is somebody that wasn't on my radar at all before the draft, because if you don't test at the combine, like tight end for me, the biggest input in my tight end model is athleticism. Athleticism really, really, really matters for tight ends. Most of the super high-end guys tested really well at the combine. And when you're a day 3 guy like Erick All and you don't test, it's kind of tough. But he gets 4th round draft capital, which is pretty good for this tight end class. And then he goes to the Bengals, which is a great spot, right? You have Joe Burrow there. They're going to pass the ball a ton. And it's a really weak tight end room. You have Mike Gesicki on a 1-year deal. And then you have Tanner Hudson and you have Drew Sample. So that's nothing all that crazy. Now, the issue with Erick All and why he fell and why he didn't test is because he tore his ACL. So the big question with him is his health. Like, it's kind of just health related in general. According to Dane Brugler in his The Beast, Erick All in 2022 underwent life-changing spinal surgery. And then he tore his ACL this last season, which is why he didn't test. So he's somebody that's going to sit on your taxi squad, probably not going to make an impact in year 1, but there's definitely some upside as one of these Iowa tight ends in Erick All, where we look at his individual stats here. This is from Dwayne McFarland. Erick All battled through a ton of injuries, but the limited time he was on the field, it was good. He had a 25% target rate versus both man and zone coverage. Those are elite numbers for a tight end. Not even Brock Bowers reach those. Small landing spot, but a small sample, but a nice landing spot in Cincinnati. He has a lot of these kinds of metrics, where if we look at career yards per out run, this is from Scott Barrett. He's 4th in this class behind Brock Bowers, Jakeem Bell, and JT Sanders. Then you go down below and you take out screen passes, still there at 4th in yards per out run. And then on top of that, the last cherry on top is from Jacob Gibbs here. And this is just the first 6 games for Iowa in 2023 for Erick All before he got hurt. Remember, Luke Lachey, I believe that he's still going to be at Iowa, Luke Lachey, but he's like a top tight end in this next class in 2025. But Erick All, through the first 6 games, was the passing offense. 280 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns, outproduced everybody else in that room. So that's interesting. He's really good versus man in zone. He dominated his passing offense. He's a yards per out run stud. And then he's also a move tight end. He ran 40% of his career routes from the slot. So there's no athletic testing because of the injury. We can kind of infer as one of these Iowa tight ends, somebody that looks good in yards per out run and all of that. Maybe he has some athleticism there. So again, he's someone that I'm storing on my taxi squad, hoping that he has upside down the road. And again, he's in a great situation with the Bengals. Now, after that, we have our 5th player here. And this is where we start to get, Erick All was a 4th rounder. Theo Johnson was a 4th rounder. Javon Baker and Luke McCaffrey were 3rd rounders. Now we're getting to our taxi squad stashes. And before we get into this, I did want to let you guys know there is a new customer special on Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you check it out. I figured I'd mention it because we have all of this basketball going on. I think there was Magic versus Cavs today. Tomorrow is Nuggets versus Timberwolves. And for any new customer that signs up for Underdog and uses promo code RON, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So if you deposit 50, you get 50. You deposit 100, you get 100. That's with promo code RON. And then on top of that, you get a new customer special waiting for you in the Pick'em lobby, where you can go to the NBA games, to the NHL games. You can go higher or lower on assists, rebounds, whatever, and have a nice little sweat for these NBA playoffs. They've been super fun so far. I've literally watched all of these Anthony Edwards games. Like, he has been one of the most fun players to watch for me. So if you're a new customer, you can go higher on the Nikola Jokic, 0.5 points. You pretty much get a freebie in your Pick'em lobby, and it's just a nice way to get started. You know, you pretty much get an automatic win, and you can add that to the rest of your Pick'em slip. Again, you can find the link down below, the description, comments, all of that. It'll take you to Underdog Fantasy. It'll use promo code RON, and it'll match your first deposit up to $100. Now, our first undrafted player that's going undrafted, maybe he's going in the 5th round of rookie drafts, maybe somebody you can pick up after the draft and store in your taxi squad, Dylan Laube. Now, I will say, I love Kamani Vidal, but he seems like everyone's doing these videos. Everyone's talking about Kamani Vidal. He was like our RB7 or 8 in our running back rankings video, so I decided to leave him out. But you can call him an honorable mention. But somebody deeper than Kamani Vidal that I really like is Dylan Laube. He goes 6th round to the Raiders, and he should have an opportunity right out the gate to get the 2-minute drill stuff, get the 3rd down and distance stuff, because Zamir White did not catch passes. This is a tweet from Davis Maddock. Zamir White's the RB1 there. Zamir White has 32 receptions in his last 5 years of playing football. So that's back to Georgia. He's never been a receiver by trade. You also have Alexander Madison. He's not really a receiver by trade. And you have Amir Abdullah. Amir Abdullah is pretty much who Dylan Laube is going to be competing with for the satellite back work. And I don't mind betting on Dylan Laube, right? Amir Abdullah is kind of a jag at this point. He's like older. He's just like bust as well. So we'll see. Like, I think that Dylan Laube could actually beat out Amir Abdullah for a roster spot in general. So that's something to keep an eye on. And Dylan Laube is just an absolute receiving game monster. Where this is last year, FBS and FCS, he had 68 catches for 708 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns with a 90-plus PFF receiving grade. Pretty much blows out all other running backs out of the water. He is a reception monster, and my favorite comp for him is Chase Edmonds, where they're both 5'9", 205 pounds, 4.5 speed, and then the important thing is those shuttle and 3-cone times. 97th percentile in shuttle, 93rd percentile in the 3-cone, super agile. So he has the perfect satellite back build where super agile, catches passes, and then also at 206 pounds, that's not a terrible size to actually take some carries between the tackles. Obviously, he's not going to be a 20 carry guy, but he's not going to be strictly a Theo Riddick. I think there is some upside for a little bit bigger of a role there. Now, after that, we have our 6th must-draft sleeper here. I really like Ainias Smith. There's lots of buzz. And again, I'll give honorable mentions. I do like Malik Washington a ton. I do like Jacob Cowing. I do like Johnny Wilson. But Ainias Smith is somebody that's not getting mentioned a lot that I wanted to talk about here. And he's someone that you could probably just pick up off waivers after your draft. He gets drafted in the 5th round. So that's actually better draft capital than Malik Washington. It's better draft capital than Johnny Wilson. And he's a slot receiver, which the Eagles desperately need. The Eagles last year, when we look at how they kind of divvied up their slot snaps, you have Dallas Goedert. He'll run a lot of slot snaps, but in terms of like slot receiver, Olamide Zaccheaus ran a lot of them, Quez Watkins, and then Julio Jones also ran a lot out of the slot, which I think speaks volumes about them kind of rotating out these slot receivers, trying to find one that sticks, and they haven't found one yet. I really like Ainias Smith to find his way into that slot role and actually have like a lasting impact. This is from Matt Harmon's Reception Perception. He did like a little mini series on all of these like late receivers like Ainias Smith, Malik Washington, all of your late round guys. And Ainias Smith, he says, is an interesting prospect to track in this year's class. His resume has some red flags. Injuries, a 2022 arrest, a flipping between running back and receiver in college. But his reception perception results from last year show some skills to mine at the next level. Smith took 81.4% of his sampled snaps from the slot and 4.7% from the backfield. He was off the line for 69.2%. That's likely the role Smith will handle in the NFL. We should see him get a ton of slot receiver work and sprinkle in some time in the backfield. Smith had 49 carries in 10 games as a primary running back during the 2020 season, also caught 43 passes, and has experience as a return man. He earned some Curtis Samuel comparisons from evaluators because of that hybrid skill set, but just like the veteran receiver, Smith shows a tangible ability to beat man coverage. That makes him an intriguing proposition. So he likes him as a comp to Curtis Samuel, which when you think about that Eagles offense and that lack of a slot guy and a lack of like this dynamic out of the backfield slot type of player, I think Ainias Smith could be that, right? When we look at his punt returns, you look at his rushing, like he does it all, right? Where in the return game, two punt return touchdowns is pretty nutty. He also had 49 carries in that 2020 season, and he was competing with Devin Achane and Isaiah Spiller. So having 49 carries and also 43 catches out of the backfield / at slot receiver is a really, really fun archetype where, again, he's dynamic. He can catch passes out of the slot, returning stuff on special teams, which also gives him a path to making the roster. If he can cement himself as a return man, that's going to get you, off the practice squad, a spot on the active roster, and you can work your way into a slot receiver. And he is really, really fun. When we look at his stats overall, next to all these other day 3 receivers, he has a 30.3 dynamic rating, which is my rushing and return rating. It's pretty much the highest on day 3. 1.99 yards per run isn't amazing, but it's not terrible. Decent first downs per out run, 70.1% slot percentage. That 28.3% missed tackles forced per reception is also really good. It's right up there with Malik Washington as like this dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands. I will say the Eagles did bring in Paris Campbell to be this true slot receiver, but it wouldn't be that crazy for Ainias Smith to beat him out. Paris Campbell hasn't found success in this league at all, really, so a rookie coming in and kind of displacing him wouldn't be the craziest thing of all time, in my opinion. Then at number 7, somebody that I didn't really like preseason or pre-draft is Rasheen Ali. He goes 5th round to the Ravens, and it's just too good of a landing spot / draft capital to pass up at this point. He's someone that's not getting drafted at all, really. And we can see here from these running back draft capital hit rates, the drop off from round 4, like round 4 and 5 are very similar, and then it's a drop off to round 6, 7. We look at points per game and top 12 point per game finishes. So Rasheen Ali getting 5th round draft capital, we're talking about Flyers here, is a pretty big deal, right? We look on the left-hand side. He got drafted ahead of Tyrone Tracy, ahead of Isaiah Davis, ahead of Kamani Vidal, ahead of Dylan Laube, who we just talked about. Like, he got, for Rasheen Ali, who I thought would have gone undrafted, he got really good draft capital here. And then this Ravens run game is one that you want pieces of, where just last year we saw Gus Edwards be like a league winner down the stretch with all those touchdowns. It's going to be a highly efficient offense, a really good rushing offense, and Derrick Henry's getting up there in age. So he's somebody that could go down and create like really nice handcuff opportunities. The only running backs in that backfield right now are Keaton Mitchell, who's coming off a torn ACL from last December, and then you have Justice Hill, I like, but he did tear his Achilles like maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. He's getting a little bit older in his career now, hasn't really been able to put anything together. So it's not like the most stacked running back room, and it's pretty fragile again, right? Derrick Henry getting very old here. Justice Hill, who had an Achilles tear, Keaton Mitchell, who had an ACL tear. They lose J.K. Dobbins, so he finds himself in a good spot. Again, Rasheen Ali, he's kind of like, the best looking guy in a Walmart, but I don't mind it. He doesn't have any combine testing because he also had an injury. He's a little bit undersized, listed at like 5'11", 206 pounds, but he did produce at Marshall, right? We look here. His second year was really good. 1,400 rushing yards, 23 rushing touchdowns, 45 catches, and a receiving touchdown at Marshall. Then Marshall moves to the Sun Belt. He, I believe, had like a meniscus injury or some kind of knee injury in 2022. Then his final year, over 1,000 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns, and then 28 catches. He's somebody that's probably going to be a satellite back plus, very similar to Justice Hill. And if he can find his way onto the roster, right, again, they're going to be light to start the season where Keaton Mitchell is hurt. Now, I will say, big disclaimer for all of these guys, like Kareem Hunt's still out there kind of looming, but he could get signed by the Ravens, and Rasheen Ali could just be a practice squad guy. That's definitely plausible. But as of right now, it's a light running back room, and he got the same draft capital as guys like Audric Estime and Tyrone Tracy and Kamani Vidal that are all getting drafted like a round ahead of him. So I don't mind Rasheen Ali at all. And then the last running back we'll talk about here, my eighth must draft. This is really more of a taxi squad stash here, but we'll talk Blake Watson. Now, he's not my favorite, but he's gotten a lot of buzz from people that watch film or even like data stuff. I only have my database players who got invited to the combine. He was not invited to the combine, but he's this running back out of Memphis. He's a little bit on the older side. I want to say he's like 23, 24. But he really popped in terms of his metrics. Now, when we look at UDFAs, he went undrafted free agent to the Denver Broncos. Now, he got the second or tied for the second most guaranteed UDFA money on the market, $250,000, which is pretty damn good. So the Denver Broncos really like him. And we look at who Blake Watson is. There's some stuff to like here, right? Where he has a year at Old Dominion, then a year at Memphis. He had like 6 yards per carry, 1,000 plus rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns. And again, this is a guy who measured in. Do I have his measurements here? He measured in at 5'9", 200 pounds. So he's not someone that's going to take on 250 carries in college. He's more of like the satellite back, but 53 catches for 480 yards and 3 touchdowns out of the backfield is really, really impressive. And that's probably going to be what his calling card is in the NFL. Now, the exciting part about him is at his pro day, he had bonkers burst score numbers. So Scott Barrett says here, at his pro day, he had a 93rd percentile 40-yard dash, a 99.9th percentile burst score, and a 33rd percentile agility score. In terms of his broad and his vertical, do we have it here? Yeah, so it's the highlighted thing here. His vertical jump was 41.5 inches, and then his broad jump 11 feet 3 inches. Like those are like crazy bonkers numbers. He had these numbers come at the combine, he'd be tied for the best ever burst score by an RB and ranked second in the broad jump. So his broad jump at 5'9", at being 11 feet 3 inches is just crazy burst. So he has a ton of burst, a ton of juice, and that's really exciting. Now, some film guys really loved him as well, where this is 142. This is where Daniel Jeremiah had him in his top 150 as his RB11. So Daniel Jeremiah, a guy who watches film, used to be an NFL scout, he was really high on Blake Watson, which I think means something, right? Again, someone that went UDFA, was inside of his top 150, and then got the most UDFA guaranteed money among the running backs. To me, that matters a ton. Now, again, it's more of a talent play because this is a crowded backfield now, right? They get Sean Payton, and since then, they have signed Samaje Perine. They have signed Jaleel McLaughlin last year, who I love, Audric Estime, and now Blake Watson again. Could Blake Watson just not even make the team or get practice squad? Sure, but we could see Javonte Williams get traded. We could see, as much as I love Jaleel McLaughlin, we do see coaches sometimes just fall out of love with these guys, like we've seen with Phillip Lindsay on the Broncos back in the day. You could see Jaleel McLaughlin get cut. You could see Javonte Williams get traded. So there's a lot of outs here for Blake Watson to pay off. But if not, he's someone, again, you just put on your taxi squad, you see what happens, and if he doesn't make the team before week 1, you just cut him, and it's no big deal. And then somebody else that I think is worth stashing, again, he's not going to get drafted in these leagues, but he's somebody where you can just put a little waiver claim in right after the draft wraps up, and that would be Jalen Coker. He's someone super deep. I very, very, very rarely recommend drafting any UDFA wide receivers, but he is a guy I will make an exception for. He is an undrafted free agent. He goes to the Panthers. He's out of Holy Cross, and he's interesting. 42.5-inch vertical is just absolutely nuts. He's 6'1", 208 pounds, 4.5 speed, and again, his explosion is just absolutely crazy. So he can high point balls, and then also he ends up in Carolina, which is a really, really weak wide receiver room, right? We're talking a pretty dusty Adam Thielen, right? Pretty much it's Theo Johnson, and then the tight ends are Tommy Tremble and a day 3 JT Sanders, so that's really nothing. The wide receivers outside of Theo Johnson is a dusty Adam Thielen. Chark is gone, so it's Mingo, Xavier Legette. There's going to be opportunity for him to get on the field in 3 and 4 wide receiver sets out the gate. And we look at his stats out of Holy Cross. He put up, damn it, do I not have these already loaded in? But at Holy Cross, he put up 2 seasons straight of 3+ yards per out run. In his final year, he had 59 catches for 1,035 yards and 15 touchdowns, which is just absolutely insane. Again, his final 2 years, both over 3+ yards per out run. And he's somebody that Steve Smith absolutely loved. Now, he's here. He's signed with Underdog, and he does amazing work. But if you ever seen, I want to say he had a clip where he like asked DJ Moore if he should start him in fantasy when DJ Moore was a rookie. Like Steve Smith, the reason I'm bringing this up is Steve Smith has legit pull in this Carolina organization, and Jalen Coker was one of Steve Smith's guys. I almost want to say that the reason Jalen Coker got picked up by Carolina Panthers was because of Steve Smith. Like this is a video from him a month ago. The best route runner in the class. Of course, that's just like clickbait on the thumbnail, but he really, really liked Jalen Coker in this class. So I think that carries weight with the Carolina Panthers. So we kind of have our tinfoil hat on here, and we're sort of, tying together loose ends. But he's somebody where if I'm in a really, really deep dynasty league and I have an extra spot I can put on the taxi squad, I absolutely think that Jalen Coker is worth an ad. Now, that's going to do it for us today. That's 30 minutes of 9 players that you can draft late in your rookie drafts. You can stash after the fact onto your taxi squads, all that good stuff. Because, again, I imagine you guys are in the late rounds. You're just looking for these flyers to either grab late or pick up off waivers. And I think this is a pretty good guide of where to go. Now, again, if you're looking for rookie rankings, you're looking for buy sells, you're looking for dynasty startup rankings, that'll all be on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron. So you can find the description. You can find them in the comment section down below. But if you can't support there, just leave a like, subscribe. It all goes a super long way. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, oh, oh.